This is the behind the scenes view at the Gable Operating Center. So you got the view of the here, I'll show you.
This is the
You know,
second.
you got this view earlier.
Yeah.
Now you're getting the door. So congratulations. You're getting behind the
Uh,
scenes.
there's panelists around here,
I see
but
Joe, I see Vin, I see Carly.
oh, nice. So they're around. They just didn't want to come to the stage and help me out of that. Joe, you were just waiting in the background? Is that what you were doing
I'm
here?
just letting you dig yourself deeper in that one. It's fine.
Flounder? Thank you,
It's
panel. I
fine.
appreciate
You
that.
sounded great. You sounded great, Demetrios. Just
Dude, I
great as
was
Uh,
ever.
recording. What are you talking about? We're putting
all
that through
right,
some
I'm
chat
out of here.
GPT.
I'll
That's
let
what
you
I'm
guys
saying.
take it. Classic.
All right. Well, I think that's a fitting way to end us off, I feel. I think this is going to be the casual session, I hope. So, I'm
I don't
super
know.
excited for
Joe's
this
pretty
one.
hardcore and uptight.
Shut up.
No, yeah, true. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll just start with introductions, and then I've got a few questions, but we can probably just riff a bit and do whatever you guys are interested in, honestly. So
Okay.
maybe, I don't know, Carly, do you want to start with the intro?
Sure. Yeah. Are we live right now?
We are live.
Yep.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Hey everyone, my name is Carly Taylor. I am a field CTO at Databricks as of Monday. That's crazy. I'm already killing it. It's been 5 days.
Good.
Um,
You get your
I've
performance review
worked in
yet?
gaming. Yeah.
Okay. Good job.
I worked in gaming for the last 5 years on Call of Duty. So I guess I'm here to hold down the gaming, data, and AI corner of the internet.
Cool. Uh, Vin?
I'm Vin Vashishta. It's middle of the afternoons, and I'm old, so I have no idea where I am right now. If we're starting off a casual session, I
There's
think I'm in
actually
the
a
right
silver alert
place.
for him right now.
Um, Founder of V Squared. We're one of the older side, speaking of older data and AI focused consulting companies. Started out in technology almost 30 years ago. Again, wow, I'm really kind of hammering this old theme on myself, aren't I? Started
I can
out,
see your hair graying in real
oh,
time.
as we speak. Started out thinking I was going to graduate from college to do AI, and well, let's just say nothing was ready for that. So did software engineering, software development, very different type of gaming, casino gaming. Started seeing BI analytics come into focus in about 2012. So started my business, wrote a book, helped clients make a ton of money with data analytics, machine learning, pivoted to strategy. It's been a fun ride.
Joe, you want to round us out?
What's up? I'm Joe. Good to see everybody. So,
Thanks, Joe.
Hi,
yeah.
Joe.
Okay. Okay, well, subject of the day obviously is shifting left. I think we've spent the last 5 or 6 hours hearing from a lot of folks who are sort of shifting left in practice. We've talked about data contracts, talked about data engineering shifting left, talked about DevOps. Maybe we'll just start with a simple one and see where it takes us. But, what does sort of shifting left mean to the folks on this call? And uh, how do you see it sort of changing or improving sort of the slice of the data pie that you work with?
Who you want to answer first? Well, I'll go first. Whatever. Shifting left is an interesting thing. I think to me, it means the obvious answer would be that it's about involving your upstream stakeholders in the downstream impact that they may have, right? But I think it's more than that. There's obviously a technological angle to it, which Gable's working on, and I think that there's also um, there's an empathy component, which I don't think gets enough press either. And so that's something where I know, having worked as a software engineer and a data person and other roles where, uh, to me, shifting left, it's a vibe, man. But it really is, it's a way of working with people, right? And I think understanding each other's needs, and to me, if you can have that plus the technological aspect, you do have a true shift left. So curious to the others here think.
I like that approach. I think that I hadn't thought of it as empathy. I was thinking of it more like, I don't know if we're allowed to curse, like shit rolls downhill, right? And so like if you shift left, you're kind of solving some of the problems that stop that from happening to begin with. But maybe Joe's answer is a bit more eloquent than that. I like the idea of it mainly because I have been on the receiving end of, bad data and no data ownership for so long. Specifically in gaming, we think about everything on in games runs on data, right? And the data producers, this is often not an easy question to answer because you have so many hands in the game development. When I was working on Call of Duty, I think in any one time we had 3,000 engineers committing code. And so you never really know who made anything that you're using, and you have no idea if it's believable or reliable. And I don't think that there's a way to really work within those confines, right? And unless you understand your data producers and you're working with them, um, everything else is just, going to start falling apart. I don't know, Vin, what do you think about it?
You waited till I took that sip, didn't you? That was
Yeah, I
nice. I
did.
like that.
Was that your Geritol that you drank?
Yeah, I gotta, wash it down with a little bit of coffee for the midday.
I
Oh,
was
nice.
hoping I said something so exciting you were going to spit your coffee out all over your computer.
Oh my God, that's outrageous,
Oh, we
brother.
missed it. We should have done that. I have really a kind of a total different take on shifting left. I think shifting left is shifting towards value because we talk about a whole lot of technology. And so when you start talking about data, yeah, there's technology. I mean, Gable, obviously, there's technology involved in data, but we have to monetize it. We have to deliver something to the customer. We have to deliver something to the companies we work for, to stakeholders internally, to C-level. I mean, all of these people are kind of getting to the point where they're sick of just throwing cash at data, throwing cash at AI, and still having their technology organization be a cost center. And increasingly, we're looking at IT, that's a cost center. Code becoming a cost center. Now, data teams can't do the same thing. I mean, it's time to break the cycle. And I think that's what shifting left really is looking at this from a different perspective and shifting towards not just moving technology towards stakeholders, moving technology towards the people that are creating or owning the data creating, data generating processes, but really talking about shifting towards the value of it. What's the point of gathering all this data if it doesn't do anything for us? Gaming's kind of a good example because you immediately see the value of the data. It's kind of what the value of data is. Why? Because you're using it immediately. It's like a race car running a race. Did the thing you did last week improve the car? Well, did you win or not? And so there's a obvious feedback loop, and we need to create more of those.
So it's probably shifting down to the bottom line.
Shifting
Well, you
down,
could
not
say
not
we are
necessarily
shifting
the.
up and down to the top and bottom line.
All
Yeah,
right.
It's a circle shift.
it's actually really interesting. So there was a friend I was sort of talking to last time I was in Washington, and we were discussing shift left, and one of the thing like I saw sort of light bulb go off in her head as we were speaking, and she was saying, what's interesting is that for the last however many years, the kind of confines of my ownership in the data space has been, I've got a set of reports, or I've got this like BI tool that I own, and I've got dashboards that go out on some cadence to my leadership teams, and I'm responsible for that. But if I were really to sort of frame where data is used that delivers the most value in the business, it's oftentimes not even within the scope of the warehouse or the analytical database. And this particular individual worked with like trains and things like that. And they were saying, we've got our big board that shows the status of all the trains and whether or not they're on time. And that it's just data, right? It's data kind of moving around, and when there's issues with the data, it has a really massive direct impact on the business because you're showing that a train is like not on time and it is, or the inverse, and customers will get really mad at you. But businesses haven't really thought about those types of things as data problems. And then what you're saying sort of makes me feel that's like part of the shifting left is starting to recognize those as not just software problems, not just code sort of application problems, but it is part of the data value chain as well.
Definitely.
Cool. Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, I would love to hear from you all as well. Like, so we sort of talked a little bit about like what kind of shift left means. Um, that's great. Where do we see AI starting to fit into that? And how does AI potentially start to help across the three axes that you guys mentioned of like, or does it help, right? Sort of driving empathy with various people in the organization, sort of the technological shifts, the ownership and accountability and driving value. Like, does it? What sort of change does it make?
I think the biggest change that I've seen so far is just in people's respective disciplines, other disciplines are now a topic of conversation. So historically, if you were a software engineer, if you were a data person, if you were a machine learning engineer and so forth, data scientist, whatever, but you're kind of stuck in your own domain working on your problems. And so it's part of the siloing that we're trying to knock down with the shift left movement and so forth. But uh, AI sort of blew the doors open where all of a sudden interest in AI was almost universal, no matter what discipline you're in. I think that more than anything raised an awareness. Okay, so we do need to think about data. We do need to think about code. We need to think about a lot of things. And so I 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I know a lot of software engineers. Not too many of them are interested in machine learning or AI. Right now, every one of them is magically an AI expert. It's crazy. Data people same way, and vice versa. AI people are cognizant of software practices more. So it's kind of what I described as a convergence. So I've been writing about this for a number of years now, but it's what I see happening is it's sort of you can call it shift left, or maybe it's just sort of this melding. I think of a lot of the disciplines, and things are starting to converge. And discussions are happening that if you were to ask me 5 years ago if they were happening, I'd say there's no way. There's no way software engineers would care about data and AI. Why would they? But I think AI has been the forcing function for a lot of rethinking and uh, new ways of working. But it's still very early days, so we'll see. I mean, I've got an article I'm dropping this weekend where comparing basically where we are now to the information superhighway of the internet age in the 90s. And Carly still has her AOL account, so she probably still uses that.
You
But
know, Gen Z is referring to the 90s as the late 1900s. I hate
that's
it
pretty
so
funny.
much. Look at
Oh,
Vin's
Vin and I are
face.
just like, Jesus, yeah, we're pretty old.
hold on.
Anyway,
I got a shift left.
depends.
Ooh,
Sorry, I didn't mean to ruin anyone's day.
Yeah,
okay, so mold. Great.
yeah, yeah, we are. What are y'all seeing in that Carly and Vin? Um,
Sorry, my dog just came in here. Get out of here. It's interesting for me in gaming because AI has been a thing in gaming since the beginning of gaming, right?
mhm,
And now when we talk about it, we're talking about AI as an academic, as an academic term, as an umbrella term, but there's also in-game AI that's part of this academic discipline of AI. And it's funny seeing the adoption of academic AI into gaming to drive in-game AI, which I guess is just an application of AI. It's very circular and confusing, and everyone just calls it AI. And I guess what's been interesting to me in having all these conversations is that we're kind of defining the scope of our work and we're defining the world as it's unfolding. Like it's literally building the airplane while it's in the air, right? Like a year ago, maybe, I don't know that anyone even had an acceptable definition of what AI was, or that anyone had even we'd all reached this conclusion as an umbrella term and people were using it differently. And it's just been so weird to live through that. Now we all kind of have an understanding of what AI is, but now we're like, how do we use it well? How do we integrate together well? In gaming companies, it's been interesting because, like Vin and was saying, like data, gaming companies generate a lot of data, and you know immediately if you're using it well or not. But what you're doing with that data is different. It used to be, you built an AI and it was pretty static based on some rules of things that happened, and it could get smarter if you built, more if then functions and but it was all hand coded. And now you're getting pushes from players on what they want out of their game. You're having to respond to that in real time. You're seeing in real time what people are actually buying, where they're spending their money. Ezra Klein talks a lot about how attention is the new like economy. Like attention is worth money. AI drives attention. So now AI is worth money because it drives attention, right? And gaming is very at the center of that attention economy. You're fighting, you know, you think of a video game and you're not just competing with other games, you're competing with Netflix, you're competing with TikTok, you're competing with all these other things that are competing for people's attention. And you can't do that effectively unless you're leveraging data, right? Because the TikToks of the world understand this. They have their algorithms dialed in to maximize attention. And if you're not doing the same thing, you will lose. So how do you do that effectively? And I think everyone's realizing that, right? Even LinkedIn's realizing that. They're forcing videos on us, which is strange because I already spend time there. They don't have to gimmick it. I'm already there. But I guess they do for some people. So I don't know. I guess it's seeing this integration into the wider society that's been interesting to me and how we commoditize it.
I mean, looking at AI, what has AI changed? I mean, I can charge more. AI's made things more expensive. I think the hype's good because we needed more attention on a lot of these issues. If there's money flowing into something, attention flows into it. You have to do it right. But I think that's part of what we've forgotten is, okay, so we've done the hype part. Now we have to deliver product. And if you look at some industries, you look at gaming, yeah, they've delivered product. You know, the AI either works or you're getting shredded on social media because your game's terrible. You know, the game experience is trash. Again, immediate feedback loop. In a lot of situations like retail, if your AI is terrible, no one uses it and you never know. You just never find out. You know, it's kind of okay, we released this AI feature. What happened? Crickets. Okay, is that good? Is that bad? So there's no feedback mechanism. So one of the things that AI hasn't changed, I guess not answering the question by not answering it, is that we haven't brought forward the accountability piece of this. But now shareholders are throwing CEOs out because, oh, you know, we don't trust your AI roadmap. We don't trust your data products and your data plan. Sorry, you lose your chair. Thanks for coming by. Enjoy your parachute. And that's we've had more CEO departures last year and in the beginning of this year than we have, I think, since 2009 or 2002 or something wild like that. This is the reality. CEOs are losing their jobs. When they lose their jobs, all of a sudden they're looking at their data team, their technical team, and they're saying, you're going to lose your jobs before I do. How about I put it that way? So now we have these expectations. So we need to figure it out. We need to figure out how to retail companies. I'm working with retail clients right now to literally change the website into more of a game experience where it is building things more dynamically and more in real time, responding to an individual's needs and trying to figure out how to use AI to do things that we've never been able to do online before. So a lot of what shifting left means is if you don't have the data about your customer, well, good luck. You can't make an AI experience magically appear with no data. And that's slowly permeating into the CEO mindset. No data, no AI. I'm sorry. I can't code AI. Nice try. It doesn't work that way. You can't train data with vaporware either. The infrastructure has to work. You can't deliver insights that are just a couple of data points on a dashboard. That doesn't work either. Insights are information, they're contextual. There's all of these pieces that we've never had to confront before because the expectations haven't been there. Now suddenly we've all been slammed into expectation territory. And this is the find out phase where a lot of companies just can't, you know, if you can't get it together, your CEO is toast. But unfortunately, the person that's going first is probably who's in charge of your data team or your technical team. So it really is a partnership. I mean, we either figure it out together or we're all getting fired.
I preferred the fuck around phase, man. I'm not ready.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was great.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends too what type of company you're at and what game you're playing, right? I wrote about this about 9 months ago where I described data teams as either existing in enterprise land or product land. And AI is going to be a lot easier to get value out if you're in product land, right? Because the end game, no pun intended to Carly, but that is the product. A game is a product, right? Or Uber, for example, or any of these other apps. I mean, the data is using AI or machine learning to do its thing, right? So, But as Vin points out, without data, you're lost. But enterprise land's different. Enterprise land is where I think the biggest challenges remain because data has always been seen as a cost center. It hasn't been adding the quote value directly to the bottom line. This is why there's always confusion about ROI attribution and so forth in enterprise land. And so I think that it definitely is worth making a distinction between the two paradigms because they couldn't be more different. But what the trouble is, you're seeing enterprise land trying to catch up now and integrate AI into the business, which we'll see. It may work, it may not. I think but it's going to require a different mindset again, sort of a shift left attitude, like we've been talking about. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it feels a lot to me like when I talk to data leaders and data teams that they've sort of been corralled either by force or sort of their own volition into a very kind of small, corner of of sort of what systems they own and what they're accountable for. I experienced this personally when I was sort of running the platform team at Convoy, and it was sort of made pretty clear to me that, the primary value that I was going to add was reducing the spend of our Snowflake bill. And like when that is your primary focus, right? Like that's not actually adding value, right? If you've got multiple people sitting around trying to optimize your compute, it's like, okay, cool, you cut off a few hundred K in the bill, but meanwhile, there's some engineering team or some sales team or some marketing team or some data science team or whatever that like at the end of the quarter says, hey, I just made you $5 million. You can't compare to that. And like you said, Vin, I think that a lot of these executives, once they're starting to get pressure from their bosses on, hey, you need to make these investments into AI and you need to make the number go up and to the right, and they start looking at where their biggest inefficiencies are, they're going to start with the folks who don't have that clear connection to a dollar sign in a bank account. And I feel that that it doesn't need to be that way, like I was saying a second ago, I think almost every company has unbelievably valuable use cases for data, but data teams oftentimes don't insert themselves into those conversations, and so therefore they get no credit, you know? Like if you've built an API and that API is unbelievably useful and customers are paying for it or whatever, that seems to me to be a data system, right? Like you are consuming data. There are things that could go wrong with it. You have data quality rules and expectations. And there's a whole host of issues, a whole host of things that I think data teams can say, like, hey, here's where I can sort of help make this better. But because they're kind of in their own little corner, oftentimes relegated to BI, they don't get the chance to do that. And I think to your point, it's like that may have to change soon. Okay, cool. All right, so I think how much more time do we have? I don't know, 7 minutes. Maybe in the last few minutes here, I would love to get like what's like the big data hot take. So thinking out next few years, what is the thing that if you could say the industry right now is thinking about some problem the wrong way, we're going down the wrong path, and here's what we should be doing instead, or sort of common wisdom or whatever it is sort of saying one thing. What is the hot take that folks maybe should walk away from this conference with?
I think my hot take right now is prepare for a lot more gaslighting um, with AI. If you think the hype's been hot now, wait until we get into I think give agents about another year or so to reach a crescendo. So to me, the dichotomy right now is there's a couple things. We're going to be supposedly software is going to be flipped on its head, where everything is basically a prompt, right? Um, at the same time, we're talking about things like data contracts and standards. And I'm wondering, and this is actually somebody brought this up in my Discord group, but like this is something I've been thinking about, this dichotomy of the world that we're in. And then you throw vibe coding on top of this, but yeah, we're supposed to be creating standards and building robust systems. And so I think we're at a very interesting I would say philosophical inflection point in the industry where on one hand it's vibes, on the other hand it's about discipline and rigor. And so uh, I, yeah, I'm very curious to see where this goes.
The two warring forces.
Well, could they be, or is there a situation where these work together as well, right? And so that's one thing I've been noodling on. Um, yeah. So anyway, that's not necessarily a hot take, but a um, maybe hot garbage. Yeah. So anyway, um,
My hot take is kind of short, and I think anyone familiar with me is not going to be surprised. I write about this a lot. I think that we are doing security with AI the wrong way. And I have yet to see anyone really set forth a comprehensive set of best practices for what it looks like right now and what it needs to look like in the future. Because I foresee the same issue that happened with gaming. We have a scaling problem with AI, right? Like there will come a day where, and these questions are already being asked, why can't we just do inference on the user's hardware? Because it's expensive to do it in a data center. It's expensive to do it server side and then push predictions down to the user. So just let their GPU do the hard work, right? But GPUs are not secure. We haven't really had a good discussion about what AI chip security looks like. And I mentioned gaming learned this the hard way because we learned this with anti-cheat. Anyone who knows anything about multiplayer gaming knows that there is a problem with integrity with users' systems and chain of custody and being able to trust anything that comes back from a user's personal device. And I think we haven't even begun to have that conversation yet, even though I know it's costing gaming companies millions of dollars. And it's scary because it's a very, very real problem. And the solution is going to seem real shiny and nice once people realize, hey, everyone's phone, everyone's computer has a capable chip. We can just use their stuff instead of our own. And they're not going to think through the consequences.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, kind of tangential to that is my hot take, which is AI, you can't just keep throwing hardware at this. We've already sort of reached a point where hardware is at a ridiculous level. If we keep throwing hardware at the problem, we're never going to solve our real problem, which is optimization. We have to optimize AI. We have to see more small models, more sort of the agentic paradigm, which is multiple small models working together with, guess what, apps and APIs and data sources. You're not going to just completely replace everything with AI immediately. Will that happen later? Yeah. But right now, unit economics. I mean, you can't fight unit economics. It's too expensive. So we're not going to be replacing a whole lot of apps and code with AI immediately. You're going to be doing the things that you couldn't do before with AI. Your other bigger challenge when it comes to optimization is data is a cost center, and it will never be anything aside from a cost center. Information, on the other hand, is a revenue generator. Information's different, it's contextual. We're in the BI paradigm way of thinking, which is these data points on a spreadsheet or, on a report are somehow valuable. But that's not how AI works. It doesn't train on data points. It learns patterns. It needs information. It needs that context. And if it doesn't have context, that data is useless when it comes to AI. So data itself is a massive cost center unless you can do something with it. And those two go hand in hand. We have to optimize and we have to change the way that we manage our data in order to do a lot of that optimization. You can only get so far with the math and with the GPUs and everything else. You're going to have to make it so that the data requirements go down. And that means a whole lot of transforming data into information.
but how do you vibe with that though?
I think it's a strong, like, data's dead vibe, but a really, really happy information is the future vibe.
Well, I think that's a great thing to end on. Just good vibes all around, you know. We're vibing to the death of data engineering. We're vibing to the
Yeah,
death of data, and
that's
we're
right.
vibing to the life of AI replacing all our jobs. So
Yep.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for this and coming in the middle of your day, potentially the end of some of your days to be a part of the first
Of
shift left
course.
data. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Great conference. Great to see everybody.
This
See you all
panel right
offline.
here was a vibe. I'll tell you that much. I
You're a
was
vibe,
laughing
man. And
all
that
the way
sweater, look
through.
at that. That's cool.
Oh yeah, that is a huge vibe right there.
It's amazing.
So
Yeah.
we've got to finish this. You all got to get off this stage. We're done.
Yeah. Well, shift left. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, you can hang out, but
Hi.
I won't mind. However, I'm about to end the live stream. We got to say goodnight.